In the cold, starlit abyss of space, I floated effortlessly through the gleaming corridors of my ship, the echo of the cosmos. My eyes, hidden behind the reflective visor of my suit, scanned the status panels, checking system after system with the muscle memory of weeks in isolation. The ship hummed softly, a gentle white noise that had become my closest companion in the vast silence. This solo maintenance mission had stretched on for weeks, but the solitude brought a strange calm to my usually chaotic thoughts. As I neared the engine bay, a sudden jolt rocked the ship. The lights flickered, casting jagged shadows that danced along the metallic walls. The comforting hum shifted into a low, angry snarl. Then came a shrill, piercing sound that cut through the silence like a blade. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. This wasn't routine. I knew every inch of this vessel, every sound it made. This was something else. Something wrong. I pushed off the wall, floating fast toward the control room, my body moving faster than my mind could keep up. The siren grew louder with every meter, syncing with the erratic rhythm of my pulse. The door hissed open, and what I saw inside turned my stomach to ice. Screens flickered with static. System failures blinked red like malevolent eyes. "Computer, what's happening?" I asked, my voice trembling through the intercom. No answer, just that relentless mechanical wail. The calm voice of the computer, usually so reassuring, was now just garbled static. I had to shut it down manually. First, I needed to figure out what was wrong. Training took over. I forced the panic aside and made my way to the central control panel, my gloved hands hovering over the emergency shutdown lever. I paused, drew a shaky breath, and pulled it. The siren peaked, then silence. The lights flickered one last time before stabilizing. The screens cleared, revealing a new message. Unknown biological presence detected. My breath caught. I wasn't alone anymore. Something had made its way onto my ship. Gripping my flashlight tightly, I secured my helmet. Emergency lights kicked in, dim, flickering. The corridor ahead looked like something out of a nightmare. I tried to stay calm, but my thoughts were spiraling. I'd seen the stories, watched the old horror footage of alien outbreaks, rogue AI, hallucinations, born from deep space isolation. I used to think I was prepared, but now I had to know what had triggered it. I returned to the engine bay. As I neared, I noticed the temperature drop. Cold, far colder than it should have been. The bay doors were ajar, leaking shadows into the hallway. I nudged them open with my boot, and the screech of metal echoed ominously. Inside, the engine sat still, silent, steel bones of the ship exposed. Nothing obvious, but then I smelled it. Something unnatural, something alive. Sweeping the flashlight across the floor, I spotted a glint, a small, reflective object. I crept toward it, each step echoing in the cavernous space. The object looked almost like a carapace, metallic, insectoid, and definitely not ship-issued. That's when I realized I must have brought this back from the last hull repair. Whatever it was, it had burrowed into my ship's systems, and now it was loose. I rushed to the lab. My hands shook as I placed the carapace under the microscope. But before I could examine it, the screens flickered again. The computer, now distorted, whispered, "Welcome home." My blood turned cold. The lab door slammed shut, locked. My panic flared, but I focused on the carapace. It wasn't just metal, it pulsed, faintly alive. I reached into my memory for something, anything, my biology training, emergency protocols. Then, with a hiss, it cracked open. A tiny, translucent creature spilled out, too many legs, twitching erratically. It darted toward me. I slammed my palm down, a sickening crunch. But it didn't die. It dissolved into jelly, seeping into the cracks around the lab bench. The screens burst to life again, flashing distorted blueprints, ship schematics, but they were changing, morphing, corrupted. The creature was taking over. I had to get out, get to the escape pod. I sprinted down the corridor, the ooze chasing behind. It moved like it had a mind of its own. The ship groaned around me, the walls pressing in. Voices whispered, soft at first, then louder, growing into a chorus of fear and madness. The pods were close. I just had to make it. But the pods, they changed too, coated in the same alien muck, twisted and wrong. Still, I climbed in. No time left. Sealed the hatch, my lungs straining for air. Systems began to fail, flickering red. I slammed the launch button. The pod detached, shot into space, a blur of stars around me. The voices faded, replaced by silence. But inside, I knew something wasn't right. The whispers. They weren't gone. They were inside me now. I sent a message to Earth. All I could do, a warning, maybe a death note. Life support was limited, but I'd made it out. I was alive, for now. Days blurred into weeks. Rations ran low. I talked to myself, saying, counted stars, anything to keep the whispers at bay. But they were always there, just beneath the surface, waiting. Then I saw it, a shadow across the void. Fast, too fast. My blood ran cold. It was the echo of the cosmos, but twisted, grotesque, alive. It had followed me. The pod's alarm screamed. The ship loomed. Its hull writhed with alien life, tendrils reaching out. I hit the manual ejection. One last shot. The pod blasted away, but the ship followed. Whispers crescendoed into a screech. Systems died. The last thing I saw was the ship's maw opening, ready to consume me. Blackness, but I wasn't dead. I woke up to a soft skittering sound inside the pod. It was in here. The creature. The whispers were louder, clearer. A chorus of voices in an alien tongue. And I understood them. I wasn't just a person anymore. I was a vessel, a herald. The pod screens flared to life. Star charts, coordinates pulsing with unnatural light. A destination, a planet I'd never seen, but the creature, it wanted to go there, needed to. I felt it growing inside me, bones cracking, skin changing. My thoughts weren't mine alone anymore. The planet came into view, pulsing, alive, waiting. I tried to fight it. One last act of defiance. I seized the controls, steering the pod into a direct descent toward the heart of the biomass below. The creature shrieked inside my head. The whispers turned to screams. Impact. Silence. The pod was buried. The creature wounded, but not gone. And as my vision faded, the whispers began again, softer this time, patient. They would wait. They would grow. The echo of the cosmos was gone, but its legacy, my legacy, had only just begun. It started with whispers, soft, hissing sounds just beneath the crash of waves against the shore. I had survived the impact, the fire, the silence that followed. But something inside the pod was still alive. Not machinery, something older, organic, watching, waiting. When I dragged myself out of the wreckage, I realized the forest wasn't silent. It was listening. The trees leaned in too far. The birds didn't sing. Shadows moved, even when I was still. Every time I blinked, they seemed closer. I kept telling myself it was the concussion, hallucinations, but deep down, I knew better. The ground beneath my feet felt wrong, too soft. Like something just under the surface was breathing. I limped through the brush, drawn by an invisible pull toward the hills, toward something ancient, something that recognized me. When I passed the clearing and saw the towering black spire twisting into the clouds like a spine torn from the earth, my heart stopped. I had seen it before, in dreams, or memories. The chorus of whispers swelled into a roar as I crossed the threshold of the spire. The figures, those broken silhouettes, parted without speaking. Their movements were synchronized, unnatural, as if governed by a single mind. Inside, the walls pulsed with a dim, red bioluminescence, casting shadows that bent in directions light shouldn't touch. The air was thick and humid, alive with spores that shimmered like dust motes, but tasted metallic on my tongue. I should have been afraid. I should have turned and run, but my body no longer answered to fear. At the center stood a throne, not of gold or stone, but of writhing flesh and rusted bone. It breathed, rising and falling, with a steady rhythm that made my spine tingle. As I approached, something stirred within it, a shape slowly pushing forward, unfolding from the mass, like a chrysalis tearing open. It was me, or what I was becoming. Its face was mine, twisted by the process but unmistakably familiar. I wasn't looking at a future. I was looking at inevitability. My reflection smiled. Suddenly, memories flooded back, not of Earth, but of before. Before I was human, before I ever wore this skin. I remembered stars not yet born, and wars fought in silence across galaxies folded in on themselves. I remembered choosing to forget, choosing to fall, to hide in the shell of mortality, until the signal reawakened what I truly was. The pod wasn't my escape, it was my vessel. And the crash wasn't an accident, it was a landing, a rebirth. Behind me, the others knelt, not in worship, but in welcome. As I took the throne, I felt the last of my human flesh peel away, leaving only the architecture of what had always been beneath. My eyes opened, not the two I was born with, but the many I had earned. I saw through time. I saw the stars bending, and in their trembling light I saw Earth, vulnerable, unknowing. A single word formed in every mouth within the spire echoed across the sky. Begin.